Yes, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network, presented by our friends at BetMGM. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by the one and only Zach Gagan, the Triple G. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Glad to make a matinee appearance on a Random Sources Say. We got some fun stuff to talk about today with one European 17-year-old. I'm excited to get into it.
Just for transparency, the reason why we're doing it at 3 o'clock is because I'm terrified that stuff's going to be popping off here the next couple hours. And I just wanted to, while we had a little bit of the dust settled a little bit and a time to take a deep breath and regroup for a second, I wanted to kind of just get what's out there, what's the latest as things stand right now at 3:06 p.m. Here on this Wednesday, because all bets are off this point forward, because I do think that we're kind of rounding third and heading home in his recruitment in terms of a college decision, and where one Nikola Kusturica will be attending this time next year.
You want to know how I've kind of figured out an easy way to remember it?
How?
His last name? It's basically Costa Rica, but Costa Rica with a ch at the end. So that's how I've been remembering it.
So his name pops up on my radar Friday early afternoon. So I'd heard of him before, but there was a lot of Gonzaga buzz, a lot of UCLA buzz, Arizona, go down the list of all of the schools that prioritize the international talent, and Illinois, just go down the list of all of the top international programs. He's been associated with them. I get a phone call Friday afternoon. It's like, so Kentucky's making a move for Kusturica. I said, oh, that would be news to me, because I didn't think that I thought they were going to leave this 15th spot open. And they were like, no, apparently they're coming in hot and heavy, and it's something that you absolutely need to be monitoring. So I obviously drop what I'm doing and start making all the phone calls and texts. And yes, there's absolutely legs to it. And spent basically the rest of the weekend and then going into the early parts of this week, learning all things Nikola Kusturica, about who he is as a player, his trajectory, the stats, the kind of what he is in year one and what he'd be in year two. But as we stand here on Wednesday early afternoon, Kentucky is the heavy favorite to land the Serbian star, who is 17 years old right now, would come over to the United States right now and play for this upcoming season, likely as a very solid, fun, flashy role player before exploding as an MFer in year two. He's your superstar that you build around, who is very likely to be a top 5, top 10 draft pick in 2028. He is not draft eligible until 2028, so you're guaranteed to have him in college for 2 years. You got to make sure he doesn't enter the portal after a year, the first year. That's something that I'm sure Kentucky, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I would imagine that they are going to want to feel very, very confident that if they're going to commit the money that he is demanding, that it's going to be a 2-year guarantee that he is going to be on campus in Lexington. But an absolute big fish, like in my opinion. I know Jay Kyle Mann tweeted this on as well, but I think for my money, he would be Mark Pope's biggest addition to date, even through the Milan Momcilovic and the Ryan Hamptons and bringing back Malachi Moreno. I think this kid, in terms of what he means in the short term and long term, I think he'd be by far Mark Pope's biggest addition. So your initial take, Zachary, on one Nikola Kusturica?
Yeah, well, once I started digging into some of the scouting reports, numbers, film, all that stuff, you quickly see why everyone is kind of praising this kid. Like you said, just turned 17. Like April 30th was his birthday. So a fresh 17-year-old coming off a massive summer last season with the Serbian national team, where he was the MVP of the Eurobasket. I think the 17U. Am I right? Let me make sure.
16U for
16U
at the time.
Yeah. So the 16U, because he was 16 then. Was MVP of that tournament. Was just taking it to was just the best 16-year-old basketball player in Europe last summer. So that's pretty significant. That's pretty notable stuff. I mean, the numbers that he was putting up are insane. I don't have them on me right now, of course, but 20 points,
yep.
20 points, seven rebounds, 3 assists, three stocks per game, stuff like that. Shoots at 65% from 2. Really long and like his jersey. When you're watching film of him, his jersey, it looks like a blanket on him because the kid is so skinny. He's just skin and bones right now, but he's just so crafty and long. He's listed from anywhere to 6'7" to 6'9". Just a double meme potential right there with that. But his length is just insane. Like, he's able to get around guys. Like, he's got really wide, big shoulders. So you imagine that he'll be able to put on some good upper body weight as well, upper body muscle there, and be able to, like we said, he's only 17. So he's got a long way to go before he's in his physical prime. And he's still just kind of in that developmental stage. Like, I think if there's one thing you read about when scouts are talking about him, they're high on his defense, they're high on his transition, they're high on his ball handling, they're high on his just like basketball IQ, just ability to kind of run the show a little bit, like play a little bit of point guard, can be a lead guard, maybe at least at the level he's at right now. The one thing that they talk about is he's a streaky 3-point shooter. Like, I think he shot 30% in FIBA in that Eurobasket. On pretty decent volume. So, but he's got deep range. He'll shoot it from anywhere. He's got a nice looking shot. Like, you see a prototypical NBA's looking wing type player in him when you're just looking at some of this film. And he's on pace right now to be, like you said, a top 5, top 10 lottery pick in that 2028 draft. Like, there's some of the scouts, like one of the scouts I really admire and follow on Twitter, NBA Draft Point is his handle. He says he's a projected top 5 player in the class of 2027. So if you put him in this high school class of 2027 kids, he's in the top 5 for that right there. A lot of these scouts are saying that he's a future pro. Like, he's playing on, he broke records for being the youngest guy to ever score for Barca, youngest guy to ever play for Barca, a minute for their big, like their A team. He hasn't really done much with the A team. I think he scored like maybe as the season went along, like got a little bit more garbage minutes as the season was kind of winding down, but was on their B team and was just killing it there as well. Like, put up kind of the similar numbers they did in Eurobasket. He's going to have a ton of eyes on him this summer for the World Cup. I guess that'll be the 17U World Cup, where he's like going to be the guy going into this tournament that all the scouts, NBA scouts, are going to be looking at, saying like, okay, is this guy really the real deal? Because we think he's going to headline this Serbian team that's going to be projected, or maybe not predicted, but at least predicted to medal in this tournament coming up that begins in like 10 days this thing starts. So I imagine they might want to try and wrap this up before then and kind of let him be able to play through that. And boy, it'd be a lot of fun if a Kentucky commit is over there playing in this World Cup. Like, I'd have a lot of fun watching that. I think it's in Turkey as well, so that'll be another thing we can get to follow. But yeah, man, everything you read about this kid says that he's going to be a star one day. We'll see how it translates all to college. If that's the route he ends up going to Kentucky, how does it all translate in year one? We'll see. International kids, it doesn't feel like have the best track record of being immediate contributors from day one. We'll see how that all changes. Like, this is a different kind of beast right now. Like, this isn't a 21-year-old Andrea Jelovic or a 23-year-old Usman Njai. This is a 17-year-old potential superstar. So that was a very long-winded way of saying that this kid is really good at basketball.
And in the same event that Mikhail McLean will be coaching and leading Team Bahamas. So that, the overlaps there are going to be kind of hilarious if this continues to trend the way I expect it to. So the deal with his recruitment is Kentucky has an offer on the table, a 2-year deal that is substantial, one that reflects Mark Pope's belief in him as a future superstar, not just star, but a superstar. Like, it is top of market money that says we are building around you for our future. One that I think it has scared off a lot of other competitors. I mean, if you go down the list of the schools that have been involved, Gonzaga, UCLA were kind of in it the latest. Gonzaga, the top threat there for Kentucky, but Illinois, Arizona, Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, UConn, Michigan, every single school that matters in college basketball has been in on this kid and has either made a contract offer or at least kicked the tires to see what a deal would look like. And a lot of them have been told, because it's a 2-year deal, that I think they approached it with a like, hey, you're buying in for the long term with me as a long-term superstar. And very few have the money or roster space at this stage of the process the way Kentucky does. And I mean, Mark Pope is just drooling over this kid and says he's the guy. And I know there are concerns about the rotation and the rest. There are a lot of 6'6" to 6'9" players in the Kentucky roster, in the Kentucky rotation right now, that are going to be wanting playing time and a lot of mouths to feed. When you have you
figure it out.
When you have a top 5 recruit wanting to come to play for your program and very likely to be a top 5 draft pick in 2028, you say, suck it up, Buttercup, compete for your minutes. We got to take talent. It's Kentucky. And I think that's where we stand as things right now. I think nobody else is in the same stratosphere as Kentucky in terms of money. I think everybody kind of behind the scenes, other school, there are still options that are pushing for him. I know Barcelona has a return deal on the table for him. They would like to have him back, but I think all parties involved are seeing where this is going, where this is trending, that Kentucky they have an offer that this kid can't refuse, and others are trying and still poking around and just encasing it. If he, doesn't see the fit with Pope or whatever, just kind of lingering in the background and trying to drive that point home that, hey, we're still here if you're interested. But I think everybody, others are growing more and more pessimistic in their chances as Kentucky is growing more optimistic. So take that for what you will. I've heard it's not done. Penn has not met paper yet. I do personally, this is just a hunch and educated guess, knowing how the Braden Hawthorne experience kind of unfolded, where he redshirted and the entire time talked about it was, coming back for year 2, guaranteed no chance that he leaves for year 2. But once you get that bug in your ear and other schools are kind of trying to be that devil on your shoulder and say, hey, but we could offer you a little bit more money. Hey, but we have a better role for you. And you start listening, and that's why it became a very last day of the transfer portal deadline that Braden announced his return, because it was that close. I don't think Kentucky is going to put itself in a position to risk it to chance if they're going to invest this much money in a kid. They're going to be damn sure that he's going to be wearing a Kentucky uniform for not 1 but 2 years. So I think that's where things stand. It's trending toward a Kentucky commitment, and I think for my money, like I said earlier, it would be Mark Pope's biggest get to date. But in terms of the rest of the rotation, Zach, and Braden Hawthorne and Cam Williams and a lot of these guys filling kind of similar, Milan Momcilovic belongs in that same conversation. How do you see, if Kentucky is able to land Nikola, how do you see it kind of working out in terms of the rotation? And, does he start from day one? Is he a rotation guy? How long, far along in the process is it going to take before he makes an impact at Kentucky?
Man, that's almost an impossible question, just because you haven't seen him play. Like, he's dominating the European scene at his age level, but there's a big difference between that and then going to college basketball. And he'd be 17 for pretty much his entire freshman season. We saw Jaden Quaintance dominate when he was 17, but Jaden Quaintance was also 6'9", 240 pounds. So was already just a monster. He was already physically there to go out and dominate against guys that were older than him. It's really hard to project and see just how much he's not riding the bench. He's not going to redshirt. This is not a Braden Hawthorne situation. Love Braden Hawthorne. Really think he's going to have he's going to get his moments to shine this season. Braden Hawthorne came on late, right before the high school season ended. This kid is dominating Europe as a 16-year-old, against some of the better countries at his age level over there in Eurobasket. So just kind of different scenarios there, but he's going to be too talented to not keep on the floor. I think he's probably going to be a kid that you have to kind of take your lumps with him, maybe let him work out through some stuff. We really didn't, some people might disagree. I don't think Jasper Johnson got he didn't get a fair shake of what he was supposed to be. He maybe didn't have a long enough leash. I think you might have to give this kid a long leash and just say, hey, go out there. I think the talent level is just so high that you're going to have to let him go out there and just kind of see what he is. Where does he fill out in the, what is he? Is he a 2? Is he a 3? I definitely don't think he's a 4. He's not big enough to be any sort of small ball situation like that. I think he's listed at 180 pounds. That almost feels generous, to be honest, at the 6'8" or whatever he is. But so I think you could see him at the 2 or the 3 even, maybe bring him off the bench, or hell, if it just depends, if he gets here late, maybe that if he does commit to Kentucky and then he gets on campus late, maybe you kind of, maybe he takes him a little bit more time to kind of get along, and maybe he has a little bit more struggles early on, but in the season. But I think he's going to get an opportunity. He's going to get a chance. I think you see him play at that. Honestly, between the 2 and the 3, I think you can be a little bit versatile with him there. Some of, I said earlier, some of the scouting report stuff I've read said that he's already a good defender right now, so you don't necessarily have to worry about him just going out there and getting burned by everybody. I'm sure that'll still happen because he's just not that big, but it's not gonna be a massive issue where he's just a net negative on defense. So you can maybe you can afford to leave him out there on offense a little bit more, knowing that he's not just giving everything back on defense. But I mean, there's kind of that log jam like we've talked about. You know, Trent Noah, it sounds like you've said that he's going to slide up to the 2 there. I think that's the right move for him personally. Like he's not a 3 or a 4. I don't think he's 6'5". You know, like he should be playing the 2. So maybe he'll compete with minutes there, like in the backcourt. You know, on the wing there, like then you're going to kind of have a Cam Williams, Braden Hawthorne, Milan Momcilovic, plus this kid Nikola. So that's a good thing to have. Like my philosophy with that stuff is just get the talent and figure it out later. Like just get as much talent as you can and then just trying to work it out. Like that's why Mark Pope wants 40-game seasons, so we can do stuff like this, is kind of figure it out, have deep benches, deep rosters, and then figure out what works as the season goes along. So I hope that that's kind of what will happen with this, is let this guy play through his lumps, see what happens. Or hell, he can come out and be the best player on the team from day one, you know, and then Kentucky's really in a great spot where they've got a kid who's a potential, you know, already playing at a all-SEC type level or whatever, kind of from day one, and you get him from 2 years. So, and then that changes the whole dynamic of everything, because then you're like, all right, Alex Wilkins, like, unless you're as good as this kid, we might have to maybe cut your minutes a little bit too. So we'll see how that all plays out. But, you know, I trust Mark Pope to get that done. I'm sure Mo Williams will be a good guy for him to learn from as well, having that, you know, that guard experience in the NBA. He can maybe get into his ear a little bit, help him through all that stuff. You know, I trust Mikhail McLean to be able to, you know, he coaches the bigs and everything, but I trust some members of the coaching staff to make all that work. So in terms of like, it's just hard to project like how these European kids are going to come over and play here. Like it just is. Like, I think it was Kevin Sweeney for Sports Illustrated was like, I think fans need to temper expectations of, you know, how good he can be immediately. And I agree to that to some extent, because it's just, there's not a great track record of it happening. It feels like maybe more so in the last couple of years, just because that pipeline has become more relevant. But like, you know, when was the last guy that came to Kentucky? I'm trying to think, like the last Kentucky guy that they got that was an international guy who came in and like just was great right away. Like Oscar was a little bit of a different situation. You've got Big Z and you've got Andrea Jelovic. Big Z, it took him 3 years before he really started to find his groove. And then Jelovic obviously was 21 when he came over here, and he was still kind of like just a rotation.
Ty Wynyard came over with a lot of firepower.
Ty Wynyard, yeah. I guess Kentucky hasn't had there's not a massive sample size to work with there, but you know, like unless you're Mario Saint Supre from Gonzaga or something, you know, like there's not that's maybe just one I could think of off the top of my head, but he's going to play. Like if he comes to Kentucky and commits to Kentucky, he's on the team for next season, he's going to play. The talent level is just going to be too much for him not to play. How much he plays and what his role is to be determined, but he's going to play.
Yeah, I would imagine, you know, there's a chance, non-zero chance he's starting by the end of the year, but I have a hard time believing that he'll be ready to start by the beginning of the year. But I think he's a guy that you brought up Jaden Quaintance earlier, and just in terms of how young he is and where everybody, you know, he had the stocks and the numbers that, you know, analytics loved him, but it was one of those, just the eye test was like, this kid is doing it at 17 years old right now. Imagine what he can do healthy, unfortunately, next season, you know, on this 2-year plan. So obviously the health is a big thing, but I feel like it would be the same vibe with him as we saw with Jaden Quaintance at Arizona State, where you just watch him and you go, man, he's really good right now. He's going to make mistakes, going to take bad shots. He's going to turn the ball over. Like the efficiency is going to be problematic in year one. But like, man, he's going to have some moments of brilliance where you go, yep, that's a top 5 pick. That's why you pay him the big bucks and invest in him right now. So you get to see the process through in year 2. So I think you just got to get him on campus. If I understand people are upset, you know, worried about the feelings and making sure, you know, making sure everybody stays happy. I just don't think that Mark Pope is in a position right now with his job that he can risk that.
Doesn't matter.
You got to take talent. When elite talent comes knocking on your door, you got to open it up and let them in. So I will see what happens here. I think I would be stunned if this drags out in the next couple of days. Like I think that we are here in terms of a decision. So we could be popping back up here in the next there's a 5-hour difference between where he is right now and ahead of us. So we're at 8:24 where he is right now. So probably, you know, we're inching closer toward not going to be today, but once we hit tomorrow, I think all bets are off with this point forward. I just wouldn't be stunned if Kentucky is looking for a lot of protection in their deal, and before pen meets paper to say if we're investing in this kid, you better be damned he's playing for Kentucky for both seasons. So hopefully it happens. Big fan of that. Let's transition that in kind of an overlap with some of the practice intel that we put all this on KSR Plus and KS Board. It's just been an intel just slugfest over there. So make sure you go subscribe to KSR Plus. But the biggest noteworthy news item that came from the early, practice intel is the fact that Cam Williams is not a participant. He's in a boot. I have heard on my end via sources that he didn't have a major setback, that it's just a precautionary deal where they're just trying to protect his foot, knowing that he came back too soon to play, fighting, like a warrior trying to play, hey, I'm coming off a broken foot, several weeks removed from breaking my foot, but I want to play for my team and help this team win games in March. That was the goal. He made an impact, but it didn't turn into this miraculous Final Four run we were all kind of hoping and dreaming it would become. It was just a, normal round of 32 exit. But I think the post tournament result was, hey, his foot really isn't in a totally healthy spot. Like, he's not 100%. Like, I'd say he's like 80%. And the more he was working and playing on it, I think he continued to get MRIs to see just how it was progressing, and it just wasn't getting that much better quickly enough to get to this point of June summer practices. So I think they just decided, hey, let's just shut this down, get his health, get his foot back in a place of being 100%. We just can't risk like him getting hurt in 5-on-5 in June would be the dumbest thing on the planet for Cam Williams. Just play the long game, get him healthy for the regular season, and October is the prize here. So that's the goal here. But obviously fans are putting 2 and 2 together here with is Kentucky pursuing Kusturica a little bit harder because of the uncertainty with Cam? Are you buying into that? Are you buying into any of the, like, maybe Braden Hawthorne isn't far along enough that they were hoping, and they're using this as an insurance policy because they have to have talent? Like, how are you kind of juggling those kind of storylines that are being talked about right now with the fan base?
Well, I mean, with the Cam Williams thing, like, if he suffered that injury in October of last year, what was his recovery time? Like, was it even 10 weeks? Did he even make it 10 full weeks, or was it 10? Like,
no. Yeah. Maybe it was 9 weeks on the dot, whatever it was within the 10 weeks.
It was ahead of schedule. Like, foot injuries for basketball players in particular, usually like bigger guys, career enders, like potential for that. So you understand them wanting to be extra cautious with it right now. I'm sure that if it was a regular season situation for that SEC tournament, he is not playing in those games. Although I will say it was awesome when he came out there and banged home those, like, the handful of threes that he did. Like, that Cam Williams, like, I'm a fan for life in him, just because that kid proved to me that he's here to win basketball games. Like, that's what he wants to do. He wants to win basketball games. I want winners on my team. So I was a big fan of that. I don't really think the Nikola recruitment has anything to do with Cam or Braden. I mean, Braden is still, like, Braden can be as great as he wants in, the off season and behind the scenes. Like, he's still kind of just this is not a slight at him at all. He's just an unproven product until he goes out there and produces at the college level. So he's still kind of an unknown in that regard. Like, I mean, Pope can think that and maybe plan for him to play big minutes, but that's part of it. I mean, Kentucky is not a preseason top 3 team right now. They're a preseason top 15, 20. Do you want to compete for a national championship? Do you want to be a top 5 preseason team? Do you want to be in this conversation? Then you got to go land as many talented guys as you can, no matter whose feelings are getting hurt. And by the way, the guys that are all these feelings that are getting hurt, these guys are making a lot of money. Like 5 years ago, maybe I feel a bit different. Do not care about, their feelings of, oh, this guy's going to come in and steal all my money. I don't care. Those kids are getting paid. Suck it up. Learn how to, like, this is life now. Like, do you want to play long-term professional basketball somewhere? Like, that's just going to be your life. So I don't even think that's really an issue, honestly. But you just got to go get talent. You just got to get the best guys that you possibly can. Pope has identified this guy. He's keyed in on him. He knows that he can come in and be a guy that can have immense potential. It's like, it's kind of similar to Braden, and you haven't seen it translate over at the college level over here, like, compared to what he's doing in Eurobasket, but it's kind of, you're still kind of comparing apples to oranges there. So, I don't think that Cam's foot or Braden's, the unknown around Braden has anything to do with getting Nikola. I think it's just I think Pope left this spot open for a reason in case something like this happened. Like he had this roster spot open in case this particular situation were to come up. So, and to his credit, he played his cards well with it. And now he's in a great position to go bring a potential lottery pick to Lexington. And that's kind of the whole point of this, is to get as much talent as you can so you can win a championship. So, I won't buy into that too much, but I do want Cam to get healthy, because I think he's going to, even if Nikola plays or is on UK or not next season, Cam's going to play a role. So you want him healthy. I'm not going to be concerned about what his foot looks like in June. I'm going to be concerned what his foot looks like in October.
Another holdout at practice is Frank Ketnong. Doesn't surprise, I don't think, anybody, because Frank,
he's our age.
The big boy has been through some stuff, and I think we all understand the deal with Frank that, buddy, you've averaged 18 games played per season in going into your 7th year. Buddy, we only need 10 to 12 minutes from you per game at Kentucky. Let's just, buddy, like, you are who you are. We love you. You're a rebounder. You're going to block shots. You're going to rim run, throw down an alley-oop or two, and you're going to stay healthy. That's your only job. If he spends his one season in Lexington doing those things and staying healthy, we will call it a massive, massive, massive victory. And I just don't think it's something Kentucky is willing to risk. And I don't think you should as a fan either, because you need that guy to be the spot minute guy behind Malachi Moreno. I like Reese Potter. I just don't believe he is in a position like Frank Ketnong has a sample size of being very productive at the high major level. Reese has just not been that,
and has played with the current point guard.
Correct. And there's the chemistry at play with that, and we'll talk about the current point guard here in just a minute. But any concern there with Frank's absence? Because I am personally not concerned.
No, again, not concerned. Yeah, he's had some. I feel like all of his injuries, correct me if I'm wrong, have they been like lower body things too?
All legs.
Yeah,
everything has been leg.
you want to make sure this guy is not like, ran into the ground by the time the season comes around. So he's like you said, he's played a bunch of basketball. He hasn't played a bunch of basketball. He's been around a bunch of basketball. He knows what to do. He knows what it takes. He knows what he needs to do to get into shape. So I feel like his ramp up process is not going to be that long. And like you said, like he's maybe 15 minutes a game max is what you're looking at him for next season. Malachi was at 20 last year. You imagine that he's going to get up into that 25, 28 range, maybe even closer to 30 if his
goal is 30.
The goal is 30. That's what I would love to see. So even at that point, then you're looking at 10 minutes for Frank. And we're actually, spoiler, we're going to do a Zoom action on Mr. Frank coming up here at the end of this week. So stay tuned for that. I haven't really dove into the film too much on him. I've just seen what I've seen with him and Zoom working together. I just know the kid is massive. So I say kid, he's 24, 23 at this point. So
34 years old.
He has his master's, and like his master's degree from Washington is like
cybersecurity, right?
Long. Yeah. It's like a 14 worded degree. So like he's obviously a very smart. I almost said kid again. Very, very, very
grown
smart,
ass man.
Grown ass man. So yeah, not concerned there with him. Just wanted to be ready. Let's get all the injury stuff out of the way now. And that way we don't have to deal with it. When the blue-white game rolls around, and I'm not even going to speak it into existence like what happened last year.
Buddy, take your time. Cam, take your time.
Yeah.
Could not care less about when they get on the floor. I care about you being healthy from October to April. That's all I care about. As for the good news and other standouts and takeaways and the things, I guess just big picture takeaways, everybody that I've talked to just raved about the energy and the engagement and just being like having some freaking pep in their step. Like, I really think that has just been kind of like a noticeable difference this time around. I talked about just kind of the wear and tear that the summer kind of took on last year's roster and how they were feeling. That was at Happy Hour that I talked about that, I believe, last week. So I think that's just something they are cognizant of. And
too many trips to Laurel Lake last year.
Yeah, just a lot of stuff, a lot of engagements, community engagements that are great and necessary, but make sure the quality matters more than the quantity, I think is probably the best way of phrasing that. But I think going into this, they're fresh, they're engaged, they're loose, and they're having fun. And there's just a lot of positive energy in the gym from what I've heard. led by none other than, and this was a very big surprise to me, Justin freaking McBride was by far the best player in the gym to start this week and has been just turned heads with his conditioning. He's cut the baby fat and looks great and is making an impact. And it was described to me that he's just like running laps around his teammates and just like first one down the floor, trying to beat everybody in drills and, getting runouts and play, kind of being a try hard defensively, all of those things where it's like, buddy, way to set the freaking tone, Justin. That's what we want to hear. We love the early returns from Justin freaking McBride. We talked about how I was a little peeved about how they handled his announcement and signing with Kentucky 30 minutes before Tyron Stokes. He did not get his due. So
that feels like a year ago, doesn't it?
I'm glad that the early returns are very, very positive with Justin McBride. Anything, does that shock you? Was that something you expected to hear from our good buddy James Madison? Also on the schedule, James Madison, it'll be a Justin McBride reunion. Any of that surprise you?
Yeah, Preston Spradlin, former UK assistant and Morehead State head coach, is now the head coach of JMU. So that'll be fun when that happens. But I mean, was I expecting to hear that? No. Does it surprise me? Not really. When you kind of just look at the fact that he's played, I'm looking at now, he's played 88 college basketball games. He's played at Oklahoma State, Nevada, James Madison. He was all Sun Belt third team last year. He's just kind of like a college pro at this point. He knows what to do. He's just going to be a little bit ahead of, what is expected than maybe the rest of his teammates that, are still kind of in that stage of maybe figuring out how to, especially like guys like Alex Wilkins, like, guys that have only like maybe a year under their belt. So it doesn't shock me too much. I'd love to hear that he is like getting in better shape. I think that was like my big thing with him coming in. Brandon Ramsey and I on our Zoom action, we have kind of penciled in McBride as the starting four going into next season. Like that can obviously change if Njai continue, like if he has like a massive breakout summer, and him being here is huge. But McBride, I think just from his experience alone, I think at least to begin the season is going to be enough for him to be that starting four there, to be able to stretch the floor and things like that. But I love hearing the fact that he's just kind of running laps around everybody. The conditioning is looking a little bit better, because if he can get in better shape, like that's the first thing you look at when you're watching film. Is like, this guy's got some skill to him, but he's just a little too big out there. So let's cut that down a little bit. Let's get this guy so he can actually beat some other 3s and 4s that are guarding him. And you can see it potentially, a really good starting caliber player. So we'll see if that kind of all pans out the way that Brandon and I have talked about. But that's a good note to hear, because it'd be more concerning if he was like, if no one talked about Justin McBride, a guy that's played 3 years in college and has been at, high level basketball before, if he wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. Beyond Justin McBride, the bigger talking point, obviously everyone wants to know the guards. Like that when Mark Pope built this roster, everything revolved around the creators, and you got to get those two positions right with Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins. So I was fascinated to hear how they kind of set the tone in their own way to start the week, and the early returns are very, very positive. They kind of been lumped together in my intel, and I kind of wish that I could get them separated. And people are just like, the guards are good, Zoom and Alex Wilkins are very good. I want to hear more individually about how Alex Wilkins is playing and how he's translating to the physicality and the speed and all that stuff beyond Zoom Diallo. But some of the individual stuff I've heard on Zoom Diallo, just a bulldog, just gets downhill. The paint touches, both of them heard a bunch about just paint touches, getting to the lane at will, creating for their teammates, setting up finishing opportunities for themselves at the rim. Dump offs, one-handed passes to the corner from Milan Momcilovic. Just go down a list. They are living up to the hype as creators and as advertised as how it was described to me. So you love to hear those two things in particular. You got to nail those guard spots. But an interesting little wrinkle that has been thrown my way is that Jerome Morton, Lexington's own, has kind of been just one of those, sneaky.
The 3-year college guy.
Man, he just does a lot of good stuff. That's just a sneaky contributor that just keeps kind of popping up on, in some of these early runs. So I have loved I don't think Mason Williams has been a superstar in that regard, but it was relayed to me that he has been more than capable as a backup, kind of Dominique Hawkins-y, like if he gets thrown into the mix, he's going to make an impact from day one. He's not like way behind physically. Like if you just look at him, I mean, he's built like a little tank. So I think the guard spot, if you had any questions about point guard as the starters and the depth, I think those have been answered at least in here in this first week.
Yeah, I've been pretty open about my excitement for the Zoom and Alex Wilkins combo. Potentially throw in Costa Rica, throw him in there as well. Costa Rica. I say it like Costa Rica in my head, and I'm like, okay, I know I gotta change a couple of letters in there somewhere. But yeah, that's been I've been very excited about those two, Zoom and Alex coming in. I feel like we know what we're gonna get from Zoom for the most part. You've seen his 2 years at Washington. I will say, like, I think it's fair to kind of question why Washington was so bad when they had Zoom and they had a potential lottery pick in Steinbach.
Very fair
as well. So I haven't really gotten like a real answer from somebody who's watched more than me of like why they kind of stunk. So
and Wesley Yates and like they had some talent. It was a very talented group that just didn't win.
I don't know. Maybe just the pieces didn't work. Maybe the coach didn't really know what he was doing. But like Zoom didn't put up bad numbers or anything. So I feel hard to it seems hard to kind of place the blame on him there. But yeah, I feel like I know what I'm going to get from him. Like he's going to be productive. He's going to get in the paint. He's going to be able to dish it out. I hope the vision opens up a little bit more. Notices that he has kind of some shooters around him and he can spread it out. Wilkins is like the wild card more or less. Like if that guy turns into if he's the trajectory that it seems like he's on, then you've got a really good potential like star player at your two guard spot. So love to hear that those two together as a tandem are starting to, it didn't take them any time at all to kind of, just get things going. I do like that Alex's nickname is Lexington. Come on. Just like we're making it too easy for us to find nicknames. This is, I know we'll talk about Milan in a second, but his nicknames, like, what was it, like Money Mill and stuff like that? We got to think of something better for this kid. Like I know BBN
Serbian Sniper, I think was the other one.
Sniper's right? Okay. That one's better. Two Serbians on the team potentially. That could be interesting.
That would be fun.
A Serbian connection there. So we'll turn into Illinois Light over here, but with all these Balkans. But yeah, so love to hear that those two are playing well. And Joy Morton again, like similar to McBride, just played a lot of basketball. Kid that just wants to be here more than anything in the world. So you have to imagine that he's coming out with a little bit of a fire under him and he's ready to come out and perform. So, I think you talk about Dominique Hawkins, like Jerome Morton's your ideal Dominique Hawkins type guy. Like just come off the bench and just don't screw things up. Like just come in and be steady, be reliable for 10, 15 minutes a game and
make a shot.
Make a
come
shot,
in, make a damn shot.
Ball. Don't give up a bunch of points and don't make it so the bench units are bleeding points and going into the negatives there. So that's awesome to hear that. Like that's what you wanted to hear right away is those two guys in particular, Zoom and Wilkins, coming out looking like, okay, they are as advertised as we kind of thought. So let's just hope that continues throughout the rest of the summer.
Now for a funny little tidbit. Milan Momcilovic stunk to start, just stunk. And like, again, we can joke about it. And I know there will be people that are they're making a big deal out of nothing. Yes. I have 0.0 concern with Milan Momcilovic and anything that he's going to do as a Kentucky Wildcat. He is by far the most confident of any player that I have on the roster. Like he is a guarantee in my eyes. So that's why I'm able to joke and be lighthearted about a rough start to his Kentucky career. But it was relayed to me that like, man, Milan just hasn't been able to make a single shot. I know it's funny. They posted one of the very few makes on Twitter of Milan's make. And they're like, more where this comes from. I think people behind the scenes are like, hopefully sooner rather than later, because that they had to look really, really hard for this one make. But just the rhythm, learning new teammates, the rhythm has just been kind of an adjustment process for Milan coming in, and just he's played so much basketball, and his sample size is so unbelievably massive that again I have no concern whatsoever. But I did just think that knowing how people are talking about him and his importance level and the cost and all of those things that like kind of just stunk up the gym his first couple of days. It's like, you know what? It happens. It's college basketball.
Yeah. And I kind of contradict myself talking about McBride and Morton being 3-year college guys coming in looking great, but like there's levels to like talent. And, you know, like it'd be concerning if McBride and Morton were coming in and we're like, man, these guys are not playing well. Like that's kind of concerning. With Momcilovic, it's not as concerning just because he's much better than those guys. You know, I feel like I'm probably sunshine pumping a little bit, but who cares? You know, I don't care.
It's what we do.
48%.
That's what we do.
49% from three last season on 1,000 attempts. Like, come on. Like, I'm not really concerned about his first week. Like, I'll be concerned if it continues throughout, you know, the coming weeks and maybe even beyond that.
We'll need to see a turning point. We will need to see a pivot, but it does not have to be June 15th, 16th, or 17th.
Yeah, so not necessarily concerned there, like I would be if McBride or Morton weren't, you know, making some headlines in practice. Like, I anticipate he'll be fine. He is a college career 43% three-point shooter. He was shooting over 40% in high school and EYBL. Like, this is just what he does. Like, this is a new thing for him. He was at the same place for the last 3 years. He's in a new environment. So I'm not too concerned about that, but I will be interested to see when it kind of flips, when, you know, how quickly does it take for him to kind of flip it on where he's okay. It's like, okay, there's Milan. There's the guy that we pay all this money for and is, you know, supposed to lead our team to a top 15 preseason ranking.
There's a message I want. Oh, perfect example. Kobe Bryant, there was the same intel his first year where he came in and all of the talk was, oh, he's the best shooter on the planet. You know, Mark Pope, all of his quotes were like, he grades out. I think remember the quote was, he grades out as the best shooter to play in college basketball over the last decade. That was the big grandiose take that Mark Pope had
this year.
And I remember everybody was like, okay, sure, Pope, you know, you're being hyperbolic again. And then the first wave of intel was Kobe Bryant cannot make a single shot to save his life. And it was like, uh-oh. And then Kobe ends up being, you know, superstar. So, you know, exactly what you needed out of him. So no concern whatsoever about Milan. It's just a little funny. I thought it was interesting. Alex Wilkins, in his little interview with UK Sports Network, singled out Usman Njai as like a big
Uzi,
little Uzi vertical.
That'll be fun.
Is there a way to? I don't know.
I like that actually.
We can workshop. We
got to be playing 20 minutes in Rupp Arena, like just blasting that song whenever he has a big bucket or something. So there's some potential there for Rupp Arena, the Rupp Arena Game Ops crew.
Yeah, we can workshop that for a little while. He singled him out as like the bigger surprise. I have not personally heard that. Like I asked specifically about him, and it was just like solid. You know, looks like not like totally lost, but also like hasn't done anything of substance to make you go, wow, that's a clear surprise to me. So still TBD on Usman. Still got to, you know, wait a little bit and see there. Trying to think of anything else. You know, I want to save this, and we, you know, we got a whole summer to stretch out, so I don't want to release all of the goods on week one, day one. So anything else that you need to see, Zach, here in the next week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, as we kind of go through the meat and potatoes of the summer?
I mean, no, like I just want to see them all get along, and friendship wins championships. We saw it through the New York Knicks just did it. Friendship wins championships now. That's what you rely on. Friendship and family. Kentucky's got the family part down, so let's see if they can get the friendship part in there too. Kind of joking, kind of not really, but will you say any Malachi stuff? Like maybe anything on him that we should talk about? Because there's massive expectations for him going into year two.
Kind of similar to Usman, just like hasn't been a superstar, hasn't been, you know, hasn't stunk up the place. Just he's been solid, you know, just very solid. You know, I like reserving like the people that when you ask how did practice go, what are some of the early returns, and they're dropping what they're doing and like singling these guys out to say like, oh man, this guy was this, or like, wow, this guy kind of surprised me. You want to just kind of take the vibe of the conversation instead of trying to say, so how did Malachi look? Because of course they're going to say, well, Malachi was, you know, did some good things, did some okay things, need to see a little bit more of this. So I'm waiting for the moment where they go, Malachi was a dude today. Malachi just dominated, blah, blah, blah. And I haven't heard that yet. So TBD on him. And basically everybody else, like I think Braden Hawthorne is another one that people are hoping to see the Tayshaun Prince 2.0 stuff. Have not heard that up to this point. early returns are still kind of, work in progress. There's a reason why, he was brought in and redshirted, and, you don't expect him day one of summer practice to be that Tayshaun Prince 2.0 that people are hyping him up to be. So still TBD on Braden. But I think for now, I think that's a nice little group, and then we'll just see how the end of the week goes at practice there at the Joe Kraft Center, and see who else jumps out, and see if Justin McBride continues to be the MVP of the week, or whatever the case is. So I thought that was interesting. A couple of notes before we start wrapping this thing up. In fact,
I got a couple too after you're done.
Okay, because I want to get your take on what Colin Chandler had to say with
I'm writing about that
in his thing. I know, that's why I'm teeing you up. I had to. Yeah, I know. I'm, we're in sync here. But before that, very quick message from our friend at BetMGM. When the U.S. scores, you score too. Win a share of $500,000 in bonus bets for every U.S. goal with our friends at BetMGM. Place a $5 or more pre-match bet on any World Cup match in which the U.S. is playing, and apply your Goal Rush token. You'll win a share of $500,000 in bonus bets for every goal scored by the U.S. in the match. The bonus bets will be split among all eligible winners after the match. And in terms of odds, USA is a minus 165 favorite to beat Australia on Friday, and a minus 250 favorite to win Group D. And they are currently sitting at a plus 3,300 to win the whole darn thing with our friends at BetMGM. So appreciate them. Had some fun watching World Cup. I'm not a soccer guy. I'll admit I'm not, but I'm getting invested in the World Cup fun, and I enjoyed watching it with you on Friday, and I wish we could do the same this Friday.
Yeah, that was fun. Stephen Peak behind the camera was there with us as well, so that was a fun time. But yeah, I guess I'm now a McKinney fan. He's like my new favorite guy. Weston McKinney, big fan of him. So, but yeah, I don't really know much about the whole roster. It was just a lot of fun when you're beating the hell out of another team. So let's see if they can do it again Friday at 3:00. I think is the game, something like that.
Something like that. And Australia is a plus 400 there to beat USA. So let's just not make that happen. Let's just go. Yeah. Go USA, let's do it. And then you can also stock up for the new football and basketball seasons with Rowback, featuring officially licensed University of Kentucky gear for men and women, ranging from polos, Q-zips to hoodies, all perfect for game day. You use promo code KSR for 20% off your next order with Rowback. Colin Chandler finally opens up about his departure to BYU. What did you take of his comments? And Rob Wright also kind of said the unspoken secret that just kind of sucks that we kind of got duped. Yeah. We got duped by one Rob Wright, where he said that he knew his heart was at BYU the whole time, and he was kind of using Kentucky as for bidding purposes and leverage purposes before ultimately getting what he was looking for back with BYU. So that part sucked, but hearing it from his own mouth was, I guess just kind of validating and nice little makes you confirm your feelings about how all of that unfolded.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of if you watch the interview, he kind of stopped himself. He almost said yeah, I was never going to commit to Kentucky. He was about to say that, and he stopped himself, and he's and then we just went back home, and I knew I was staying. That was my whole, I think his actual quote was, my whole mindset was to stay with BYU. So he went through this whole thing knowing that Kentucky was just kind of, that was the decoy to try and get him a little bit more money. And Colin Chandler kind of said the same thing, not really. He basically said, if I was going to the portal, I was only going to one place, and it was to BYU. He didn't even talk to other schools, nothing like that. He was complimentary of Kentucky, but he literally said that he didn't. There was not another conversation with any other school. So if I remember correctly of how that all played out, it felt like the picks were coming in for BYU for him, and then there was a moment where it was well, maybe Kentucky's going to try and throw in a big offer type thing, and then he still ended up with BYU. So I wonder if it was a similar leverage play situation with Colin that kind of played out there. I'm happy with how things turned out with Kentucky's roster compared to last. So I'm not going to poo-poo that or anything. I wish Colin the best. It did say that he's one thing I did notice. He's the quote right here is, I think I'll have a lot more opportunity to play off the bounce, to play off the dribble, and make decisions. So I guess he wants to have the ball in his hands a lot more next season. But he's got to learn how to dribble the basketball first before you start talking about all that stuff, because he couldn't even dribble up and down the floor half the time, it felt like. So that was actually the one thing that stuck out to me, is Kevin Young wants to put the ball in his hands more. So I'll be interested to see if he's able to use this summer to really develop and actually add that to his game, because I mean, he was a good passer, but he couldn't, it just wasn't reliable enough. Like he just never felt like the dribble was tight enough to be able to make all that stuff happen. So, but yeah, he was going to BYU all along, and Rob Wright was going to BYU all along. And it was funny how much of a BYU press conference about 2 BYU players had talked about Kentucky.
Oh, well, I like our guys. I like our team. We're gonna have fun.
Nice, but
we're gonna have fun here in Lexington with the guys we got. You had a couple of other notes that you wanted to address that I'll give you the floor for.
Yeah, just a couple things because they've been updating the player profile pages, like the roster page and stuff. Usman Njai does still not have a class identification next to his name. Do you have any insight as to whether he'll be a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior? It might not necessarily matter too much, but any insight on that?
None. I couldn't even I couldn't even lie to you. I have no idea. How old is he? 23, 22?
I think he's 23. Let me double check that right now. I think he just turned 23. No, just turned 22. Just turned 22 in March. Probably a junior would be my guess.
We'll just be guessing here.
I think Yelovich was a sophomore and he was 21 when he got here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of going off that. Like I imagine they'll make Usman a junior, just to try and fit in that 5-5 role too as well a little bit.
I think I agree with you. I'll go with junior. I will say, just in terms of the intel I've received on my end with Usman, is like he could not have nailed the checking boxes process to get cleared, like for classes for practice. Like he's eligible in the NCAA's. I got through all of the compliance hurdles. With basically no setbacks or hiccups whatsoever because he was so well prepared. And, there are some, kids like to lollygag and they, it takes time to get paperwork in and you tell them to do something.
In Italy.
You won't hear from them for a week and just procrastinate. Like you heard a lot of that stuff with Big Z. Like the Big Z process was like, buddy, just submit the damn paperwork, buddy. We could get this all done if you just work with us here. That was some of the early feedback with that. And Yelovich, his feedback wasn't that it was lollygagging or whatever, but his just class schedule was so late, and for him to get eligible academically, he had to finish up, and just his classes went longer, and that's why he wasn't able to get into August. So it was just very refreshing to hear that Usman came in ready to go, had everything submitted on time, was hungry to get on campus. He was desperate to get on campus with the rest of his teammates to give himself a real shot this summer at meshing and getting all that other stuff figured out. So good on you, Usman. I have no idea what your class distinction is going to be, but I hope we get as many years of you as we can possibly get.
Yeah, my guess, just kind of following, just using past experiences in the Yelovich situation, junior just kind of feels right. I wouldn't be shocked if if they gave him a sophomore designation though, and he had a few years to play. So, because then that would put him at 24-ish, 25-ish by the time his senior year came around. So then that's kind of something the NCAA is trying to avoid. But height and weight stuff is out as well. A lot of this I take with a grain of salt because UK is going to try and bump him up a little bit, or make him look a little bit better. Do you want to guess what Frank's weight is listed at on UK's website?
I have not seen this, so this is a total guess. 6'11", 268.
7 foot 275. They've got this kid listed as a offensive lineman. Could you imagine?
Hell yeah.
270. No wonder his legs are giving out on him. He's 275 pounds. He is just a massive human being. So that'll be fun to watch down there. We were talking about the McBride stuff, in his conditioning. They've got him listed at 250. He came into college at 220. James Madison had him listed at 240. So I'm curious to know is how much of this are we putting on muscle now as opposed to cutting out some of the baby weight, baby fat, like you were saying, and replacing that with muscle? Is that kind of what's going into that? Mason Williams is listed at 210 pounds. That seems like he's kind of like a big fire hydrant type guy, but Alex Williams is listed at 170. So I'm like, man, you're telling me Mason Williams is 3 inches shorter, but 40 pounds heavier than Alex Wilkins? That kind of is a little bit shocking there. Nothing else really stands out from that too much. Just looking at those, but I just saw some of those numbers and thought it was interesting. Milan's listed at 6'9", 220. I don't think anyone had ever had him listed at 6'9", so he's grown.
I think the combine he got officially listed at 6'9".
Did he?
That was one of the bigger this dude might be
So maybe he did grow. So yeah, good for him there. So, but Alex Wilkins is tiny, 6'6", 170. Like that's kind of small. So we'll see. And he is kind of like a wiry
They gave him
guy.
the extra inch.
Yeah, gave him the extra inch, and that's
he was
important.
6'5" at Furman, I believe.
Yeah, so 175 or 170 pounds is a little light, I think, but we'll see kind of how that. He's got the whole summer to add to that and kind of add some muscle to him. But yeah, so there's just some random notes that I saw that. But when I saw Frank's 7 feet 275, that kind of made my eyes pop a little bit. I was like, whoa,
God love him, man. I hope
they
he's
call him
healthy.
Big Frank for a reason.
I remember reaching out to some people on the Washington side during that recruitment, and they were just like, God, I hope he's healthy, because he is a gem of a human being, like the best kid on planet Earth. Like, you know who he is as a basketball. Like I said earlier, he is who he is as a basketball player. But like, for the love of goodness, the dude just can't stay healthy. Like, it's always something that pops up, and they're just like, it's just devastating, because he is so easy to root for. Everybody that has ever come in contact with him goes, gem, 10 out of 10, love him to death. But so hopefully we don't have to deal with the butt here with all of this. In fact, I have a funny line while we're talking about butts. Just this is stupid and sophomoric, but
okay.
You will like this. A buddy of mine who may be watching this show, but I'm not going to out him for this take. But he said, we talk often. I'm an ass man, he says. Always sign Serbians. So there you go.
All right.
So there we go. That's a running joke. If we we already got one, but if we can get a second one, and Nikola Kusturica, I am all in. Zach, this is a lot of fun, buddy. I appreciated the kind of short. We just had to fit this in because I know just all hell is going to break loose, and I can't afford to, I wanted to just get it all out there into the ether and then worry about it with the next wave, the next day or whatever. So appreciate you coming on. This was fun, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Hopefully we're doing this again shortly for a quick little 15-minute hitter on a rapid reaction soon.
Say all of the same things that we just said.
Literally. But I'll have a little bit more film that I'll have watched by that point, hopefully.
Where can fans find your work?
KentuckySportsRadio.com, of course. You can find me over there. I'm writing about Colin Chandler's weird comments right now. And then Zoom Action, that's the one I'll plug. My basketball breakdown show, our basketball breakdown show with Brandon Ramsey and Stephen Peak producing. Like I said, we'll do a big Frank episode later on. Probably Friday is kind of what we're shooting for. So we'll see if no random news pops up. We can kind of tease this. We'll get to talk to some players tomorrow.
Yes,
so that's fun.
We'll talk to
3 players:
Malachi Moreno, Mason Williams, little bulldog that we talked about, and Reese Potter. So that'll be fun little trio. Get some quotes.
A lot of stuff coming to the website.
My own personal news that does not matter zero, and nobody will care. But it's my show, so I'm going to say it. I'm going to see Toy Story 5 tomorrow with my 2-year-old, and I am very excited about it. I think I might even get the expensive, stupid Buzz Lightyear popcorn bin and all that, because guess what? It's my first time I get to take a child of mine to a movie that I grew up on. So, I grew up watching and went to the theater to see all the ones growing up. So guess what? You better believe I'm going to be excited about seeing Toy Story 5. So after coming back, I will actually be on KSR tomorrow with Maggie Davis. That will be fun. I'll be joining her, talking a lot about a lot of the same stuff that we talked about on the show. And then I'll be we're going over to the Joe Kraft Center, talking to those 3 players, driving home, and watching Toy Story 5. So a lot of fun stuff there for our Thursday. A lot of good stuff.
Yeah, that is a good day. That'll be fun.
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Make sure you're subscribed right here. Like this video, comment. I appreciate everybody that joined us for 1,000 people joining us on a Wednesday afternoon. Just how stupid, just insane. This fan base is the absolute best, and love each and every one of you. But make sure you go subscribe to KSR Plus. The summer sale's going on right now, and the intel has just been popping over there. The KS board's been popping. KSR Plus has been popping. So make sure you go subscribe there, and we will catch you next time. Go Cats.